Okay, so this is a Duromax XP11000iH. Basically what's going on with it is customers having a hard time getting it started. Electric start would be the key, and it looks like having issues electric starting with by pressing the button. And I'm gonna go ahead and show what's going on. So right now, turn on fuel, turn fuel on, auto, low idle off, fuel on here, low idle off, turn this on, and then go ahead and press to start. And this is basically exactly what's going on, even if he's pressing the remote to electric start it. But if I stop it, and then I turn this on, and then I go to pull start it, which is right here, it fires up right away. So, what I've already previously troubleshooted this, and what's going on is on the back side here, when you go to electric start, the choke isn't closing all the way. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. Let me pull this back panel off. Oh, it's actually 8mm. So let me grab the appropriate socket.
Did I kick that?
Let me grab a little bit smaller socket because this one's having a hard time fitting down in there.
Turn the music off though.
Go ahead and turn off the music there.
It's headphones.
Yeah. All right, so get these all out. Oh, this is actually the wrong side. I'm sorry. It is right over here. It's okay. We can leave those out. It is. Is it on this side? Yep, it's this side. I'm sorry. Normally, on the opposite side of the control panel, but on some of these, they're just slightly different in terms of layout. There we go. So here is our carburetor. If I pull these clips out, let me grab a magnet. I somehow flick that one in there.
Is that water or oil on that thing?
It's oil because the customer unfortunately has tipped this thing over in his vehicle. And basically it's just these two clips. They just pop right off right there. So I'm gonna set those aside and then pull this out. And if you look, which is a little bit difficult to do, you can see the carburetor valve. So if I turn this on,
Can I get a shot of it? I can't tell if it's seeing it or not.
yeah, you're seeing it. So if I turn that on, you can see that it closed, and then I hit start, which I hit just now. It opens it up part way, and then it opens it up all the way after a few tries, or after cranking it over a little bit. Then it'll close part way, so it's not closing all the way. Now if I force it by hand, when it gets close, if I hold it by hand, I can get it started. So in this case, the solution, according to Duromax, is to replace that carburetor. So we got to basically pull that off. So now, let's see here. So it looks like the best thing to do is I'm going to have to, I don't know if I can gain a little bit better access from the front panel, if I can drop that back a little bit. What I'm hoping is I can gain a little bit more access to that carb, but I don't know just yet. Yeah, and then those wheels are in the way. And it doesn't, let's see. I might, let's see, it looks like it's being held here, it's being held here. I might be able to loosen this up, just get these out of the way. And all these bolts are all the same. That's one thing that's really nice. You can see they're all the same. It's one thing I like about Duromax, that they're very consistent in their bolts. Oops. Actually, I want to pull this one. And I'm hoping if I loosen that, I can gain.
What's cool, it has like an automatic start feature. You can tell it's got some brains to it.
Oh yeah, yeah. These things are actually pretty cool. And I was able to snake this out, which is the air filter cover. So now I need to get to that bolt. I'm trying to get to it without having to pull the wheel off or whatever to get that moved. But I'm hoping I can just gain enough access, enough room in there. So it looks like it'll give me a little more room when I reach my hand in here, but I think I'm gonna have to go in it at this direction in order to remove it without having to go crazy, tearing things apart. But it does look like I could actually pull this cover piece off, and it looks like there's a bolt here that I already took out. It looks like another bolt right here, and a couple here, and the same thing on the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And I think by pulling this off, it'll give me a little bit more room to access things. Unfortunately, that carb is not exactly in the easiest position for removal, which is interesting on some of the stuff, because there's generally always going to be some kind of carb issues, and when you're making it hard to remove, it makes it a lot harder to service in certain conditions. Let's see if we can get this bolt out. It looks like I'm just about there. We have one more bolt. There we go. All right, so I'll set this aside. And again, all the bolts are basically exactly the same so far, which is nice. All right, so now I definitely have a little more room to gain access to that carburetor. And the two bolts holding the air filter housing and the carburetor in place are going to be 10 millimeter. So reach. What I like to do is use these wobbly extensions. They're really nice, so like if you're in a tight spot, you have a little bit of room versus having to be like perfect like that. So these are very, very handy because you really don't want to be at an angle on these bolts because you can end up stripping them. So, especially in this case when I can't get straight on that bolt. And not to mention, it's a nice little handle. So you find me using this extension quite a bit. So, all I'm doing is reaching in here to get this 10 millimeter nut. That guy. And I have one more holding this on.
It's interesting, the frame of this is cast.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, and it's aluminum. So I'm gonna get a little longer extension because it looks like it's a little short. I have another one of these in a much longer length, like this. And it's nice for things like this when you really have to kind of reach in, because otherwise you gotta really strip a lot of things down. The whole idea is to reduce the amount of things you're gonna have to tear apart. It saves the customer money and time. Okay, so now I should be able to get this off. It looks like right here there's a hose band. I gotta loosen that, and then I gotta pop it up, and then I can pop this out. So it's gonna be, yeah, actually I pull this out and then it should pop out. So that, I believe, is probably gonna be metric. A lot of the stuff on this thing has been metric. Let's see, what is this? This is, I don't think this is 6. Let's see, what do we got here? I wonder if that might be an 8 mil. No. Let's get an extension. Grab my little socket arrangement. There we go. Loosen this guy up. There we go. And so this is the breather hose. This can come off like so. And yeah, because he tipped this over, he saturated this part of the air filter. So I'll have to pull that off and clean that. But for now, I'm gonna set that aside. And that hose band was 7 millimeters for the strap. Okay, so on these, I wanna check and gently remove, well, it looks like I can pull it back a little bit, get these gaskets. If these gaskets can come off nicely, I try to do so.
How are you?
And then set it aside. And then I'm gonna pull this breather tube and this drain tube for the float bowl out. They just pop in right here on the casing. There's just a little hole, so it will drain outside versus the inside of the machine. And there should be a clip. So this clip goes up into this. Oh man, that is going to be a pain to access. Let's see here. Can I access this without having to take much apart?
I think it usually, doesn't the carb just slide out usually?
Yeah, but see, this is so this is your fuel solenoid here, and this turns or shuts off the main jet when you turn off the engine, generally speaking, the reason why they do that is because under centrifugal force, the engine will make a few revolutions. If the exhaust is extremely hot, if you didn't have the fuel solenoid on there, or you bypassed it or whatnot, it can suck some gas through that main jet into the combustion chamber and dump it out the exhaust, and then you can get a backfire. So they added the fuel solenoids on a lot of things years ago to reduce those chances of backfire. So that's what I'm seeing here that's holding this, because generally speaking, it should just come right off. They're using a electric motor to control, little stepper motor to control the throttle on this thing. And then I also see another hose clamp, which ironically enough, they have the fitting going this direction, so that's a real pain. So it does look like I'm gonna have to pull this front panel off and drop this down to gain access to some of those things, unfortunately. Yeah, but we'll get this going. Let's see here. It's the best way. Pull this guy off. I'm thinking it just sits.
You need a little yoga mat, man.
I know, right?
Doing all this
Get my yoga going on.
I know, this mechanic yoga.
Let's see. Put these, sometimes I put some of
Downward
these
plug
on.
wrench and all those
Interesting
poses.
thing. Okay, so I'm going to remove. Yeah, this wheel I think I got to remove. So I always usually have a few blocks of wood over here because
Yes.
there's always some things are going to have to get off the ground. And it looks like there might be a bolt just behind this wheel here that's kind of holding this in place, but it seems super loose, so I don't even know if the bolt's in there. But anyway, I gotta pull that off and inspect.
I'm getting cameraman yoga.
Oh yeah. There we go. And that looks like it's probably a 10 millimeter. And it is. So we'll pop that off. There we go. So I'm going to keep this together. Set it aside. And yep, so basically this plastic, in order to remove, they have a hole here and you wouldn't be able to pull it out through this axle thing. So you do have to pull it out. And there is a bolt behind here, but it looks like it's just to gain access to it for the front piece. All right, so we'll
There's a
disconnect.
power supply or something.
Yeah, this.
I mean, that's a voltage regulator. Look, it's potted.
Yeah,
Epoxy.
this looks like it might be.
It's a freaking brain unit, dude.
This might be a
It's in the door.
AC or not AC, DC voltage regulator.
Or something.
I'm
I bet
thinking.
this has to do with the regulation circuit. But look, they're using cooling air. I think they're cooling it. There's probably a heat sink on the other side in that.
Yeah,
shroud
right
there.
inside this here.
Man,
Yeah.
this thing's high tech.
Oh yeah, because if you look right here, you can see aluminum fins.
Yeah,
So
look at
yeah,
that.
that's exactly
That's cool. They're cooling their electronics using the engine's fan here.
Yeah, and to gain access to that plug, it looks like a pain, so I'm just gonna set it aside and making sure I'm not putting tension on that. Okay, so now I got a lot more access to this. Now the question is, how much of this is tied back? And that's the thing I hate on some of these. They really like to get things kind of taut. And at this rate, it looks like I'm gonna have to probably pull the tank because I can't pull this back, and I can see why. And it looks like this fuel line right here is holding it, and this propane line that goes right here is also holding it back. So it looks like I'm gonna have to pop the tank off. It's like a whole bunch of pieces we're gonna have to pull off on this thing. Oops.
Oh, don't break your audio.
Yeah, exactly. I'll set this aside right here. All right, so now, oh man, these closed frame ones can be a pain. It's the only thing I like, the main reason why I really like the closed frame or open frame ones. They make them so much easier to work on, and I can fix those really quick. These, they make them, they're always a little bit different, and they become a big puzzle, and they don't make it very friendly in most cases to do the work yourself. Let's see here. So if I pull back just a little bit, I can see a little bit more. I'm really hoping I don't have to. So it looks like if I disconnect this propane line and then this fuel line,
Can't get a shot.
I could move this out a little bit because there's a wire loom here. So I'm going to go, instead of pulling the tank and making this a big job, I think I could do it if I just pull this line. So if I pull that line, it's coming directly from the tank. So I need to pinch that line. And what I like to do is use a pair of channel locks, but you just got to be careful that you don't completely smash them real hard. Create a little opening there, just enough that you're not just smashing on these lines. And then I like to feel it also, and then loosen it up. And so it's just a light pressure. They do actually make some hose clamps that make it a little easier, but you
They have
can.
these things you see in the hemostat. That's for like a doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. That would work too.
You know, like a mechanic's hemostat,
Yep.
except for there's no blood.
Yeah. So then this, all I'm doing is I'm reaching into this little hose clamp that you got to kind of pinch together, and I'm trying to pinch it and then pull it back off of that hose, which is a real pain to do. Let's see here, move some of this. There we go. So right here, try to see if I can lock it maybe. It looks like it's kind of, there we go. So basically the hose clamp looks just like that, and I was just trying to pinch it to slide it over. But I got it off. I'm gonna set it down here, my nice little pile. Okay, so now we're left with this propane line. And it looks like it goes into this control panel. So we're gonna open up this control panel. I'm hoping it's just a hose band on the inside there so I can just pop it off. But unfortunately, it looks like I gotta open up the control panel. Let's see. So, there's a few screws holding it on.
Hey, this is Taylor with
In fact, I'm gonna need to get a Phillips screwdriver to pull that fuel valve off. Or at least the control knob. Taking care to not lose the screw. Keep it all over here in my little pile of stuff. Undo these screws. Nope. Apparently I didn't clip that in all the way. All right, so Wow, I also make this a real pain. Okay, so there is a hose clamp down in there. If you look down in here, straight down, you can see right down there at the far end, there's a hose clamp. Unfortunately, they have it facing downward, so it looks like, I'm hoping I can just get to it under here. I'm going to assume it's 7 millimeters, just like the other one. And let's see. Let me grab my wrench here. And access it.
And then I did notice that your blades are super dull.
Under here.
Longer for him to sit and sharpen them than get it set. And
Yep,
your deck belt
it's 7 mil, so
outside the
go ahead and loosen this up all the way because we're gonna actually have to take,
your 3 spindles,
in the end, we're gonna have to take the hose band
blades, deck belt,
off.
screws for the spindles.
Oops. Wow, definitely get my yoga in today.
The whole mower tune-up plus the laser.
So,
Maybe the work stand with the workbench would have been a good idea.
yeah, it probably would have been a good idea.
It's like working on a car, man. You gotta get lay on the dirt.
Yep.
Gotta get up in there.
So what I'm doing is reaching in to the hose. I like to do a little twisting action, and then hopefully I can kind of, yeah, that's in there quite a ways. I'm thinking in order to help, oh no, I can't pull it off that way. I actually do have to pull the hose off the backside. Okay, so let's see if I can, yeah, that's not working.
That carburetor's buried in there.
Yeah, they really make it. See, I wish they, on some of the stuff, they should have made like a fitting on the inside that you just pop it off. But no, they really like to make things kind of difficult at times. And you can't really get your hand in there. I don't want to bend that. Let's see, I wonder if I get a flathead and get on the back side. So what I'm gonna try to do is, you have the hose that connects to the fitting. I'm gonna try to get in between the hose and the fitting and see if I can help kind of nudge it.
Your cameraman lost control of the camera.
Uh-oh.
It was all over the place.
Oh, that's working. So slowly kind of working it. Let me get a larger or a longer flathead.
Is it known by the state of California to cause cancer?
Uh-oh.
Probably.
Now, we almost there. Now maybe I can get this one in there. There we go. Yay. Okay. So I'm gonna take this hose band off. We'll have to remember to put that back on, but you can see right here now what I was working on, and I had to pop it off. And what I ended up having to do is take a screwdriver and go right in between here and just kind of nudge it after I rotated back and forth to kind of break the seal essentially. And then eventually I was able to get it off at about right here where I was able to then pull it off. Okay, so now I should be able to pull this hose out. And it looks like we also have, okay, so this here is a fuel valve, and we disconnect it from the gas tank. There is a connection here to the carb that I see now that I got to remove so I can get this completely off. There we go. So now now we have much better access. So if you look in here, you can see I took off this line. It goes into the side of that fuel valve. This fuel line goes directly from the tank, gas tank, to here to the center of the fuel line. And now we have a lot more access to the carb, and we have access to this wire loom, which contains that connector for that fuel solenoid, along with those stepper motors or servos or whatever you want to call them that control the RPMs and the choke. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't like these things staying open, I'm going to put in a couple screws to keep this closed so it's protected and we're not putting any extra stress on things that's not necessary. And usually I like to put one in one side, one in the other. That way I don't have to put all the screws back in necessarily. And just enough just to hold that together. Okay, so now I can kind of let it rest down. Actually, I can rest it just like that, which actually helps a lot. Now we can really look in here. Cool.
Yeah.
That really helps. Okay. So, whoop, 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 whoop. Let me pinch this up
Fuel
higher.
spill.
Yep. Which happens, unfortunately.
Now you have to call OSHA.
Okay, so you can see this hose band right here, which is one of the issues I was talking about. It's facing the wrong direction, and if I pull this towards me, I could probably get it, but then I start tugging on the fuel solenoid line, which is coming right here, goes up, and it's up there, and it looks like there's a zip tie right there. Right, oh wait, no, there is no zip tie on it. So what I could do is pull this sleeve. Oh yeah, there is a zip tie, I'm sorry, right here. So I'm gonna snip that, we'll replace it later. And this is just more for like keeping it tidy and semi-protected. If I can get to it. There we go. Perfect. Pull that out. And then now I can pull this back, exposing the wires and the connectors. Okay, so now this line goes all the way up here, which I'm gonna take this other zip tie off, and I'm actually just gonna remove this for now. Okay, so fuel solenoid wire up here, and wow, they really push it way back. Okay, so it actually goes all the way over here. Right here, there's this green wire, these two green wires. And see if I can help. So right here, there's the two green wires. It goes all the way along this kind of loom here, all the way down. So it's kind of a real pain to get to. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect both of those. Just confirm, yeah. And they connect to two orange wires. So it's two green wires going into, or green-black going into two orange wires. And they, so let's get that one off, and that one's disconnected there. Okay. And then I gotta feed that through. Do that all the way through. Okay, cool. So that is now clear. But then we have 2 stepper motor wires. And there's one right here, this clip. It looks like a 3-pin or 6-pin clip, only using 2 wires. This one just disconnects. Got to cut this zip tie. And this one appears to go to the choke. So this is the choke one. And then the other one, which is our throttle, this one unfortunately I think goes to the inverter, which is located over there. Let's see if I can, hoping, yeah, wow, what a pain. So this one is this wire here, which goes down into this whole loom, which is also zip tied and all that fun stuff right here. So let's just gently set that aside. Let's cut this zip tie here and then open this up. I'm hoping it's just right there, but I have seen these connected directly to the inverter. And it is looking like it's heading that direction. I'm going to remove this cover. That's for the lower, and that zip tie. And then all I'm doing is I'm just feeling up here to kind of remind myself which one it is. And that way I can also kind of feel where it is. It is definitely heading towards the inverter. More zip ties to cut. Yeah, so it looks like we are going to have to remove this side panel too. So I'm gonna set the stuff aside, pull this.
Everything must come off.
I know. And you try not to make too much work for yourself, but unfortunately, some of this stuff requires quite a bit of work. All right, so again, these are usually 8 mil. Oh, I need my proper bit. And we'll move this one. That's where the battery is.
That's where the state of California is, right in that battery.
Yeah.
The state of California is definitely in that battery because it has lead.
Okay, so for this to come off, it looks like I gotta pull that wheel off, get the bolts pulled off on that to then gain access to that. And this is where it looks like the inverter. Yeah, oh, no. So the loom, I'm gonna just set that down like that. So the loom goes along here and the inverter's actually right here. So yeah, all of this has to come off. And you'll see what I mean. That inverter's pretty big.
Well, you gotta take the other wheel off, bro. You better find some more wood.
More wood.
Just block a tree.
More wood. That's why I keep blocks around.
You take the wheels. Oh, this is like a pit stop for your generator.
Stop. I need a couple more pieces there to kind of give it a little, or another 2x4.
You see what we got inside of here? We got the state of California.
There you go.
Some hose.
And then pull this guy off.
This kind of reminds me of a Yamaha. Yamaha made some generators that look kind of like this. I'm not sure if they were dual fuel or not.
Yeah, there are a lot of manufacturers, and basically overall, they're all pretty much the same to a point.
This one's not really What is this one though? Because this one's not really a clone. It's got so much
Yeah, so basically how a lot of these
stuff in it.
how a lot of these places work is they don't generally make the engine, and they don't generally make the generator part itself. What they do is, because otherwise they have to have a lot of tooling and all that kind of stuff, and why reinvent the wheel, essentially.
But this thing's all integrated. I mean, the way that they have all of the, I mean, look at that shit.
Yeah, so that's your inverter right there.
That's cool.
And then this looks like it just popped out. It's a
There might be kids watching.
big bushing. And then same thing, they're all the same screws. So we're gonna have to gain access to the back of this because I'm more than willing to bet that that's plugged into the back of this. But I gotta pull this panel off to gain access to that harness so I can undo all of those zip ties. And another thing, we might as well take a look. So this is the carburetor they sent us, part number 20024-00629-00. This is the carburetor, the new one.
Motor and everything?
Yep, has all the stuff. And then this will also kind of give us an idea of how long this throttle line is. Let's see, so throttle on here, we got fuel. So this is choke, and then this is throttle. One way you can tell is choke is always on the outside, throttle plate's always on the inside. And how you can also tell is this is generally sometimes used as a vent. Usually they'll have a hole there to help vent the float bowl. In this case, it looks like they put a plug there. They have a little hole there. I'm not sure what they're using that for. But that kind of gives you a little idea. Okay, so this is the throttle line, and you can also see that we already got this one disconnected, we already got this one disconnected. So fuel solenoid and choke, this is throttle on, and it's a mile long. So that is basically showing, you know, an idea of where what I'm looking for and what I'm to be expecting. And it's starting to look like on what I usually see on a lot of these. Okay, so get that. Oh, okay, there's that one. So this one has a bolt right here. And same thing under here. This is crazy. Like, I'm not a huge fan of having to take all of this stuff apart just for a carburetor. Like, I mean, we see so many carburetor issues, and to have to do this just to replace a carburetor or have to even pull it off to clean it, it's just crazy. Okay, so this is bolted in, which is also holding this piece to a point. And I think this is just clipping in. All I need to do is just gain access, enough access to that harness so I can, okay, so we gotta take this bolt off. And let's see, what size is that? I'm thinking it might be 12. Yep, it's 12. Okay. Wow, that is on there. Jeez.
Gotta use your torque wrench.
Yeah. My hands are torque wrenches. Yeah, so that's that guy.
So the axle stud?
It's for this bar here, which I think is to allow you to tip it over type of thing to a point. Man, hey, really torqued those.
kind of a giant unwieldy box.
Yeah. I mean, overall, these generators are actually great generators. It's just some of the stuff, it really comes down to some of these closed frame generators. When they pack them in these nice little packages, it's just like, you know, a nice new car. They pack them in a nice little package, and it is a pain to work on.
That's what it's like. I mean, most small equipment is like agricultural. It's really basic.
Yep.
But this thing's high tech. It's got blowers and coolers and friggin' the state of California and everything in there.
Yeah. So this is the pole starter rope right here. I'm just gonna swing it aside. I don't need to take all that off. You can usually take a couple screws off and then you can pop it through. I don't think it's necessary. Like I said, I like to remove as little as possible to do the job. The more work I have to do, the more costly it gets. So here's that throttle cable. It's coming down, it's going through this. So I'm gonna cut this clip here.
And I just love that split loom
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, it's nice. I mean, it looks pretty, but you gotta cut all of it off in order to replace, you know, this carburetor in this example. Normally, if I go to pull this carburetor off to clean it, you don't have to do all of this. This is only because we're replacing it because of that choke, and hopes to fix that because that little stepper motor is not, it doesn't seem like it's working properly. So that's the only reason why I'm having to go through this whole process. In the carb cleaning, I would just pull it over and then pull everything apart and then go through it over there. And worst case scenarios, I would have to do this in order to put it in like my sonic tank and stuff like that to help clean it. Okay, so gotta get more of these zip ties off.
They could just run on propane and then it'll never come up.
That's very true. That we do have customers that actually use nothing but propane, and then as a very worst case scenario, they will switch to gasoline. We have had customers where they have done that, and then they wanted us to clean the carb and clean the tank so that they can use it again in the future for emergency purposes. Because if you don't clean them, they are going to go get gummy and get nasty, and you will have issues with like fuel varnish and such. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm popping this inverter loose in order to get to the connector on the back of this inverter for that carburetor throttle.
This doesn't look like something I'd leave out in the rain.
Honestly, I have not had any issues with any of these being out in the rain. I've pressure washed these units on the outside, of course, with they're closed. Never had any issues with rust, corrosion, or anything like that. I do it on all my stuff. Haven't had any issues. They say you shouldn't leave them out in the rain. I think Duromax has something that mentions that. And overall, I haven't seen any issues. On some of their older ones, some of the key switches, they had corrosion issues in the back on the switch itself. And so that switch wasn't exactly water resistant. So that was a issue they did have, and they've addressed that.
One of the issues they're going to have with corrosion is when all the mice move into this sweet generator.
Oh yeah, and yeah, that wouldn't be fun. So right here, this is our throttle, stepper motor, cable comes up, clips right here on this inverter. So I have to push this little pin down and pull it up and out. So it's right here down in the middle. So now,
the friggin' brain unit.
yeah. So now what's interesting is I gotta pull this little rubber grommet and pull it out a little bit so I can stuff that through. And then pull that out and then get some of this pull aside to hopefully push this whole connector through this hole.
What am I even looking at? I'm lost. I'm trying to figure out.
Uh-oh.
Figure out what.
So I should have the connector coming out of this area right here where my finger is. I'm just about to push the connector through like so. Okay, so what I did is I rest this on my knee because I don't want to put any stress on any of these cables or any of these connectors and stuff. There is quite a bit of room for movement on these, but in the end, you just want to be careful and be gentle. So I'm going to set this up and I'm going to put one of the 10mm nuts on this side just to hold it up. I'm just gonna finger tighten it just to hold it up and in place while I remove this carburetor. Okay, so we gotta unfish or fish out this wire.
And it really doesn't look like it was designed for service, like, well, it's kind of a servicing nightmare.
They can be. That's the one downside of these open frame or these closed frame systems. They're very compact. I mean, they do a really good job with it. They're very compact, but with being things compact, service, it's a little harder. Some of these open frame ones, everything's exposed, very minimalistic, and much easier to work on. So yeah, like that one right there, everything's just exposed. I have another Duromax over here. You can see everything's just exposed, like the carburetor, everything. So it's just so much easier to work on. Work on than these closed frame ones. But I do have to say these inverter ones are nice when it comes to sensitive electronics. Most cases, they are quiet. Yep, that's very true. Very quiet in comparison, and you get a clean sine wave on these too. So there are some pros on these, but the con is, yeah, working on them is much more of a pain. Okay, so now that I got this wire routed out, I got one wire right here. See, that's the other thing too. You just got to be careful when you're pulling these wires to not accidentally unplug things. Like you can see right here, this wire is just on the back side of this wire. If I pulled hard enough, I could have popped it out of that connector and or damaged a connector somewhere else by yanking on these wires and stuff on these connectors. Okay, so I need to get this propane line removed, and so that is kind of a pain. So it looks like what they probably did on this is they hooked up the regulator. First they hooked this line up to the carb for the propane injection, and then they hooked up the line to the regulator because I can access that easily, whereas right here you can see this hose clamp is facing the complete opposite direction, which I can't access that. Ideally I would just disconnect it there, pull it off, and then slide this thing out, but I got to disconnect it there, and then I can pull that off. So that was, it looks like I could probably use my flathead right here.
It looks like you're obsessing over your precious.
Oh yes.
You're sitting here on the floor in like a golem pose, digging around in this generator's guts. Ah, my precious.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do quite a few things on the floor. I don't know why. I just always kind of been. I guess it keeps me limber.
Yeah. Well, it's from the days of working on computers, right? Computers are always.
Oh yeah, that's true. Especially when we did Tech Move back in the day.
Oh Lord.
Okay, so looks like get that loose enough that then I can unscrew this to then get that line off that barb fit in there essentially. Okay, so that was the propane line going to the propane regulator to then go into this carb. So I am going to now remove the carburetor, hopefully.
Hooray! Look at that thing.
All of this.
Really like electronically controlled.
There we go, all that.
State of California loves that.
Yeah, just to get to that carburetor. That's kind of a pain. Okay, so let's see here. What do they supply me?
That's weird. One of these is an 8-volt stepper. The other is a 12-volt stepper. 8.
Yeah, it looks like the 8 volt is the
choke.
No, that's actually
that's the
throttle. The 12 volts, the choke one.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I hope all of this work.
This one's got some hoses and stuff on it still. Like, don't you need?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna need that, but I can do that here in a second. So okay, so what I noticed is they didn't give me any gaskets, which is fine. 99% of the time, I'm able to reuse gaskets, and plus this particular machine is brand new. What I do is I make sure that the gasket that is currently on there is in decent condition. I don't see any rips in it or anything like that. If there is a rip, you got to replace it. If there looks like there's any kind of damage on it, replace it, because if you have a leak between this carburetor and then the head, you can have a lean condition because you could be sucking in too much air, or what I've also seen is where it seals on the outside just fine, but right here on the face of this carb, I've seen it where it has a break between here and here, or anywhere along here in this channel. And if this is a vented style carb where it's venting this bowl along here, then from a hole up here usually, and you have a break in the gasket between here and here, what I've seen is it can suck fuel through the vent side into the crankcase, or into the combustion chamber, I'm sorry, not crankcase. And that can cause a rich condition. Rarely do I see that happen, but I have seen it happen, and they can take a while to kind of diagnose. All right, so now I'm gonna see if I got all these wires kind of in the right direction. And then we're gonna, making sure, so this is the choke plate on the front. Usually you can see some of these orifices in the front like this. This back end is the throttle. Throttle's always facing the head side, and then choke is always facing the air filter side. So I'm gonna put it back on, and the gasket does look good on this. Okay, so that is in like so. And then they do have, okay, so the hoses, I was just looking on here, the hoses are the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these hoses back in its place down here. And making sure that I'm not pinching any wires.
Outside of just getting a new set.
And that looks good. So I'm gonna gotta route these wires
Oh, you're blowing
up
Okay.
this
So,
direction,
same thing. Have you ever heard of meter blades?
and then get that inverter for the throttle cable, or the throttle plug, plugged back in. But I need to make sure I'm routing it in the right direction as it was prior. And then go into this upper hole where this one was,
Matt loves the gator blades, so I try to get them as possible.
and pop it in there. It looks like everything should be good. All right, so now I will take this nut off that we temporarily placed, pull this guy out gently, put it through this little grommet here, That needs to get placed back where it was. Pull this through and then plug her in. And in this case, it was routed underneath. And then it plugs in right here. There we go. All right, so I'll get this grommet, push back, and then put back into place. There we go. And then we can put this back up, and I can actually bolt this back down in place. And I always start out just hand tightening first. Make sure everything is threading in nicely as it should. And then I will tighten it down with the mini Ooga Dooga. There we go, perfect. All right. So now all I'm doing is I'm gonna make sure the stuff's back into this loom material that they're using. Get it back into here. Just get it back so it's all pretty. And that plug, where did that go to? Apparently, it must be like a service thing or something because that's not plugged into anything, and I don't see anything that needs to be plugged into. Okay.
It's a poverty plug. They have a better model that uses that plug, but this
Probably.
model is cheaper.
Yeah, because sometimes what they'll do is, some models they'll have a little, they'll kind of use the same loom on multiple models, but they may not use certain things. Like, see right here, this isn't even plugged in. So yeah, it's cheaper to do one harness, and then for multiple machines.
Well, it looks like the harness is where they failed. I don't think this is a harness. I think this is just everything has a big long cord on it, and they just connected them all together. Like, if they had actually spent time and engineered a harness, they had to put the connectors on the carburetor end so that when you service the carburetor, you don't have to go service the inverter at the same time. Then you just touch the carburetor.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
A simple, like
a nice proper harness.
If they made a proper harness,
Yeah.
they had a connector on both ends, but they didn't. It's basically just devices all have a long cord.
Yeah.
It's a long cord on the stepper that goes all the way around the unit.
And then they just try to clean up, some of the extra wiring.
I think they need to invest in some wiring harnesses.
Yeah.
Is this warranty?
Yeah, this is a warranty job.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, basically brand new. The customer used it a few times, and then all of a sudden he started having issues starting it. And it turns out because of that choke not closing. But he didn't have any issues pole starting it. And apparently when you go to pole start it, that choke is all the way closed. But when you go to electric start, in this condition, it's opened it up part way instead of keeping it closed all the way. So where it thought was closed wasn't closed. So I think something probably shifted within, or it's just bad alignment or something on that stepper. So now I'm plugging in the fuel solenoid back in. It's the 2 greens that go into the 2 orange in this on this generator. In this case, the plugs are you have a male and female, so you can't mix them up. And even if they were the same, it's just a coil, so it doesn't matter really what polarity it is. Okay, so then we're gonna plug in our choke, and that is right here. I just plug it in over here, which is a little easier because I'm trying to get this harness kind of tidied up in how it was. Okay, so get this guy on, which was kind of placed on here. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer they have to, I mean, you don't have to put all this stuff back on, but it is nice to kind of keep it tidy. And plus this is, you know, how I would want it. If I paid someone to do warranty work on something, I want to make sure, you know, I want to know that they put it back together the same, if not better. So I'm gonna leave that wire out. It's probably what's hanging out. I just don't want to put any tension on it to cause it to break. But that looks like what it was. I'm gonna zip tie that closed. Already zip tied this, and I put the little holder on there. So. Okay, cut the ends off of those.
Using this high performance black zip ties.
Oh yeah, high performance.
You gotta count them to make sure they get the same number of zip ties.
Yeah, okay. So what I don't like is when they use this stuff, like what they should have done is they should have cut it a little long and then use some heat to keep all this from like fraying out.
Yeah.
So it's
a Chinese finger trap, dude.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a zip tie on the back side of this up here, just to help kind of reduce that from happening anymore.
Finger trap.
But I'm gonna have to probably trim some of that because I'm not gonna be able to feed that like that. Okay, so we have the fuel line that went off this carb. I'm gonna put this back on before I forget, but outside of that, there's nothing else left on this carburetor that needs to get transferred over, it looks like. There we go. Pop that on. And we'll get this, that went through. And then this was the propane line. So it goes from the carburetor here. It actually went on just like this. And so I'm gonna connect this back on, making sure this fitting is on the outside that I can actually access, along with this fitting or this connection on the hose band. So that connects over here. Slide that down. I'm gonna loosen it up just a little bit, make it a little easier. So it's pushing that down, and then gotta make sure this is back on and push that through. There we go. And then I can tighten this one up. Like so. And then this lower one, tighten her up. All I'm doing is kind of holding it in a position that I can actually get to. Then as I tighten it, it'll stay. There we go. So that's on. nicely secured. All right, so I know we have one more wire loom piece, and that went from all of this stuff on the top like so. So it basically just kind of covered up all this spaghetti here.
It's for beautification.
Yep. So since I can grab the bundle up here, what I'm gonna do is put a zip tie up here to kind of keep it kind of together, make it a little easier for me to kind of start making sure I don't have any stress that's being pulled on any of these wires. What I did is for the throttle and choke wire, I made sure I pulled it this way a little bit because I have plenty of length, just to make sure I'm not putting any tension on those stepper motors that's unnecessary, to reduce any chances of like fatigue. Okay, so now I should be able to.
Yeah, there's really no strain relief on those steppers.
No, there really isn't. So you really just have to make sure that you're just kind of paying attention to all of that, and kind of work this in there, which is kind of unwieldy at times.
The state of California, if you eat this battery, it will cause reproductive harm. Or if you look the exhaust hole, reproductive harm may occur.
There we go. And tuck those in there. Get all the wires kind of tucked in as nicely as possible.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
There we go. There we go. All right, so now I'll put a couple zip ties across that like before. There we go. I'm going to not put one right here because I'm noticing it's kind of tight on what looks like the propane regulator, or I mean propane solenoid. I don't want to put undue stress, so I'm going to pull it out a little bit. Yeah, that's better. And then I'm going to put a zip tie just down further. So overall, biggest thing is make sure when you are putting this stuff back on, don't add stress to any of the wires, so that with vibration and movement and stuff, that it kind of fatigues it. Okay, so that's on. I can technically put this back on. So let's do that so I can get that out of the way. Just kind of tidy up the face, or tidy up this. There we go. And so this, I had to put this in. So I'm going to put this in first. See. There we go. Before I turn that all the way, let's get this other one in. I always like to get everything in first before I really tighten it, meaning that if I had to do this panel, get all the bolts in loose first and then tighten it up, because you'll find like you get all of them, like 90% of them done, and then you find that last one and you can't just get to line up. So it's just easier going in it that way. There we go. get it. Nope. There we go. Now I got it. Okay, so now I could do this. Put this one on. Now switch to the 8mm. Actually, before. So we had one down here, one down here, and then we had some along the sides here. So we have one right here. One up here. And this one, yeah, that one I think had the case. It came down, and so when I put that one, the same thing on the other side, technically on the other side, that one was supposed to come off. When you pull the panel. So it's the exact same thing on this side, but two. So now that I got all of those loose and on there, I can go ahead and tighten them up. So I'll go ahead and start here. When I'm running the impact, I'm not going crazy. There's no need, and you don't want to strip them out. It's easy to strip these things out. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and close this panel. There's just two screws holding this panel where the battery's located and where you can service to drain the oil. There we go. All right, so I'm not going to worry about closing that side up right now. This screw goes right down there, so I'm going to leave it right there. Let's get this side closed up and reconnected, and then hopefully we can do a test run before buttoning everything 100% up. The reason why I don't like to button everything 100% up, because there are times when maybe something wasn't plugged back in, and you buttoned all up, so now you got to take it apart just to get to whatever that is, and hopefully it's not something buried down in there. But I have done that before, so I just try to do enough to test, confirm, and then once everything is good, then close it up 100%. Okay, so on this side, we're going to install this air filter housing. But before we do that, I need to clean this air filter because it is saturated in oil. And so what happened, this is what can happen with 4-stroke engines. You got to make sure you don't lay them on a certain side. So like for example, air filters on this side. So if you were to tip this over for whatever reason, air filter always needs to face the sky. So face it, you can tip it this way, you can tip it this way, where the air filter is always facing the sky eventually. The reason being is you have a breather tube on the top. Here is your breather tube, which connects to your valve cover. If you tip it over on its side, oil can go into, on this side particularly, oil can go into this the valve cover and then seep down through this breather tube and then down into the air filter housing. Can get down into the carburetor and make a big mess. If you're lucky to start it up, it'll smoke like crazy, overall, just keep air filter facing the sky if you were to tip it over for whatever reason. In this case, it tipped over in his truck, tipped over this way, soaked everything, got oil down through here. It soaked this air filter, which I need to clean. And so how I clean some of these, some of them you can't clean. You're just gonna have to replace. These foam ones, generally I can clean. Usually I just wring them out first as much as possible. And let me grab some more paper towels. Just kind of wring it out a little bit more. And then I'm gonna move your drink here.
Oh, I have a drink. I was wondering where that went.
And going to basically dip this into my sonic or solvent tank, which is basically just mineral spirits.
Oh, that's gonna eat that foam, brother.
Nope, actually it won't eat it. It will get all that oil out of it. It's a good cleaner. And I've never had any of these get eaten up. And I've done this for many, many years. And then,
Evil spirits.
then what I'll do is I'll blow with air. Don't like dig in it, you know, keep it going. If you start damaging the air filter, replace it.
State of California.
Yeah.
OSHA.
And usually when you're doing this, if you wipe your hand and you see it start to coat with oil, it's not clean. And in this case, look at that.
Oh, it's fresh now.
There we go. So I'm gonna set that in this box because I need to clean this. This is soaked with oil. What I like to do is mineral spirits, same gig. I usually get a little can, just a little can like so, and the toothbrush. It works great. And I put a little bit of mineral spirits in it, and then I just go through, kind of clean this out. And the mineral spirits helps loosen up this oil, and then with some air.
Ah, state of California.
And you'll have to probably do it several times. Getting some of my tools all over the place. Wipe some of this out. Try to get, I want to get as much of that out of there as possible. There we go. After a few go rounds, you get most of that all out of there. Yeah, oil is just, can get messy. Grease is the thing I hate the most because it seems like grease gets everywhere no matter how you look at it. Okay. There we go. Now it's not saturated with oil. All right, so.
Now it's saturated with the state of California.
Yeah.
Contaminated minerals.
So this, I had, that gasket was in there. So gently, and it's okay to have a little bit of oil on these. Not a big deal. It actually will make it easier just to kind of take off the next time if necessary. Most things, I actually don't have to replace the gaskets. I've been, if you're gentle, especially with carburetor cleanings and stuff, and you do things carefully, you generally don't have to replace any of those gaskets. It's usually what happens, people go in there, they'll hammer on things and rip the gaskets. And then, yeah, of course, you're gonna have to either make one or replace it. And I don't like to make them unless I absolutely have to. And I have in the past, and it's usually when it comes to, they don't make them anymore, on especially some of this old equipment that I have worked on in the past. So I'm gonna set that out of the way, kind of tidy up my little mess here. Okay, so what I wanna do is get this air filter back on because it's so much easier to access when this is down. And what I'm gonna need to do is I need to get this propane line hooked back up to here. So this is, or here. So this is all gonna be covered up. Along with the fuel lines I gotta get connected. So it's just gonna be easier to do this now, unlike earlier. So this gasket, when you install gaskets, pay special, careful attention to making sure that you're putting them on in the proper position. I can't tell you how many times I've seen customers just throw a gasket on and not double check. So when you put this on, let's say I flip it over and I put it on like so. You can see it clearly isn't the right direction, but you know, if you aren't paying attention, you would notice that, you know, certain things do line up, but then certain things are getting plugged.
That is incorrect.
Yep, so pull it back off, double check, look at everything, and now with that on, you can see everything is in its proper place.
Maybe. Yes. Oh, okay.
I guess we can see it.
Okay, so now I'm gonna put this air filter back on. Since it looks like, all right, so I'm gonna pop. It looks like I'll have to kind of put it at an angle, get this lower section on here first of the air filter housing, and then you should be able to work it in place.
Okay, baby.
There we go. So now it is in place, and then this air or this breather tube here connects to the top of this air filter housing. Don't forget to plug that in. Otherwise, it's just opening here, and you can end up sucking in dirt and stuff instead of going through the air filter, because air will travel in the path of least resistance, like water. So now this is our air filter. And that goes back in this little section right here. If you want to come over here and look. So that goes in like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the couple nuts, the 10mm nuts that holds that air filter housing in place. Grab my,
I can't see nothing with these. Damn. There we go.
let's see. Let's see here. Where is my 10mm socket? Oh, here it is. So I set it on there and fish it through. Take the other one and
I'm gonna sit here.
yeah,
Pile of the state of California.
and stick this guy up there. Oop. There we go. On these, I like to torque them down by hand. I don't like using the Ugga-Dugga. I like to know how tight they are, and you don't want to strip out that stud. I've seen people strip out the studs, and then it's just so much more work. So I always like to torque it up by hand. So what I do is I first get them nice and snug. And I'm just double checking, making sure none of this wire or hoses are pinching in the back. Yep, everything looks good. So getting it snug. getting it snug. And then once I get it snug, I don't want to do any more than like an 1/8 turn or whatever. Same thing over here. Once I get snug, no more than 1/8 turn. Another thing too is if you have it hooked up here and you're torquing out here, you're gonna apply so much more torque. When doing some of these things, I'll move my hand up here and rotate it up here because it's going to be harder for me to put more torque on that nut than it would be if I was out here. So you'll find in some cases when I don't need much torque, I'll move my hand over and I'll have to really work hard to really over torque. But once I get snug, then I just do a little set and we're good. I've never had any issues doing that. And it helps just prevent from over torquing. So now we'll put this air filter cover back on.
Is there no air filter?
There is. It's this little sponge.
That is the entire air filter?
Yep, that's a little air filter. And then, I'm sorry, no, that's a
air filter.
I'm sorry.
The air filter's in a housing down below.
Yep, you are right. I'm sorry. This is like a, almost like a pre-filter.
Should be the breather. That filter should be for the breather.
You know what? Actually, you're right. So I'm wrong. Air filter's down here. You can see this whole box right here. This is where the air filter is. This whole box right here, if I pop
Yeah, it's got
this
a big
loose.
old air filter.
Yeah, so if I pop this loose,
It's probably saturated with oil.
and there's
That's
the
not
air
bad.
filter.
It's not too bad.
And
It's got some oil on
it
it.
has a little bit of oil, but not too bad. I wouldn't be worried about that. And on this, it looks like the best way to put it back on is to kind of, that's interesting. It doesn't even seem like it really,
It's probably because it's swollen up because it's absorbed oil. I think you have to
odd.
put it on the other side first. I think it goes on it. If it might fit into that lip on there a little better.
yeah, let's see, it
Now
just
we can-
kind of, oh wait.
No, that's wrong. No.
So it looks like it just kind of sat in like that. That's odd. Let me kind of sponge out some of this. Not sure what this is.
It's just oil. It's
A little bit of oil, but I don't know if, yeah. It's interesting.
Is that it's got a big. Is that a carb canister? A carbon canister?
Yeah, yep, that's for the EPA regulations.
Oh, that's for the state of California.
Yep. Okay, so it looks like it's basically just like this, which is kind of interesting. So you just kind of have to kind of hold that in place, get that back in there, and then get that up. Oops, I don't want this hose in there.
I thought it said air filter hosing, not housing.
Air filter housing.
Things all jammed up.
There we go. That's a very interesting style air
I'm surprised they
filter.
didn't use a pleated one. The
Yeah,
foam
I am-
one is like,
The foam's cheap.
yeah. Not recommended for construction.
Yeah, so that's actually the main air filter. This is, I wouldn't even call it a pre-filter. I think this is actually for the, if you get any blow by, because they probably don't have any reed valve here. And so if you get a little bit of oil in here, it drips and then this filter just kind of sucks it up essentially. It's interesting. All right, so making sure those are back in place. All this looks good, nothing it looks pinched. We'll put this back on. Oop. And to put this on, you put it on, there's a couple little holes right here. So you gotta kind of snap it in place essentially. And then get our little clips. These clips, one goes on like so and down. Another like so. So that's all closed up. Carburetor's installed. Now It's carburetor's hooked up, minus propane and gas. So we got to put this control panel back in place. So let's see here. So we have this fuel line. This fuel line goes to the lower or the side part of this fuel valve, like so. I think, oh, I'm noticing a little hole on this. So see that right there?
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna shorten this by that much because
What happened?
I don't want that to leak. That could have happened just from me trying to take this line off. It could have been from possible original installation. Hard to say, but we don't need it to leak. So we got some extra fuel line here, so I'm not too worried about shortening it just that little tiny bit. Okay. And those things you want to pay attention to because you don't want to have to pull this back off because you turn on the fuel and it's now leaking, and then you got to find where the heck that leak is. Just keep, look at all of those things as you work it. Could have been also when I was trying to, whoa.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
It says transmitter 2 disconnected. Oops, no, now it's reconnected. The audio, I think you might have banged your audio for a second.
Oh,
okay
I see. Okay. So it could be that when I took this hose clamp off, that maybe I pinched this fuel line when doing so, when I was trying to pull it off. Hard to say what exactly happened there. All right, so now I'm trying to think which way is going to be easier. It looks like I need to put this fuel or this propane line, reconnect that first, and then the fuel line, because I'm thinking it's so short, this has to be up, and that was the process I took it off last time, was that, and then that line, and then this line, or this line and this line. So I need to open this back up. Oops, my magnet on a stick stuck to my tool. Ouch. So take the screw out. And then take the screw out. Okay, what I'm wondering is if I take one of these bolts and I can't really put it on there. I was hoping maybe I can hang it a little bit, but it doesn't look like I can. So just trying to see what I can do to make life a little easier on this. Okay. Okay, so it looks like it's pretty easy to access. So I'm going to, man, that's just plastic too. So this casing is plastic here. So, yeah, man. So I think the best thing, I'm gonna see if I can hold this up with just a couple of bolts just to help make this a little easier. Just kind of finger tight this, just so it can kind of hang there. Use it as like extra pair of hands, essentially. Just enough that I can hold that up while getting those hose. I'm gonna do the same for down here. There's to kind of hold this back a little bit. There we go. Okay, so then I can reach in here and I got the hose, but I'm gonna see if I can get some of this netting or whatever you want to call it, hose, shield.
Chinese finger trap.
Yeah, Chinese finger traps. There you go. Get that out of the way. Okay, so if I remember correctly, this was 7 mil. Yep, 7 mil. Where get some extension here. So I gotta get this hose band back on, and I'm just gonna move a few tools out of the way so I can do my ballet.
Ooh, a white circuit board.
Yeah, that looks like it's the
grain.
control. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I gotta get this hose connected to this barb. I'm gonna put this on this hose, like so. Okay. But I gotta get under here.
This breaker isn't even hooked up. They gave you 3 breakers, but the middle one does nothing.
Oh, interesting. All right, so.
I think breaker's 3-phase.
So sometimes what can actually make things a little easier is I'll take a little bit of seafoam, spray on my finger. So I just spray a little bit of seafoam on there, and I'm gonna put along that, around that, just kind of wipe my fingers on that barb fitting.
Your dielectric grease would work real well too.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. And then,
Silicone is pretty neutral. It doesn't really attack rubbers.
yeah,
That's like what you're supposed to use for like O-rings and stuff.
Yep.
I think. Or seafoam. Just pour magic seafoam, fixes all.
yeah, seafoam's
Nice yoga pose, brother.
decent stuff, I know, right? Get him all kinds of poses in
He's
here.
got his miner's lamp. He's laying on the ground.
So this hose, or this fitting wants to pop off. So I'm just gonna get it just ever so slightly snug so that it doesn't want to just pop right off. And then, let's see if I can push that on using my long needle nose.
You really get cozy with this. You're getting romantic.
Yeah.
Just put a turntable on your bed for when you work on these things.
Yeah.
A turntable on your bed and like it's all cushioned. A special mattress.
Okay, so got it
Is
started.
a yoga mat?
hoping.
Yoga mat would be good. Some padded floors. You're getting old, man.
I know.
Should install heated padded floors. Like put down some hydronic heating hoses and then pour like soft foam rubber over the top of it, like 2 inches.
Yep. That
Just wade through here.
would be cool. So I think now that I got the hose on there, that fitting is just a little snug.
You can roll coal with this thing.
And where did I put my extension with my socket?
Uh-oh. Did you leave it inside the patient?
I know, right? These are what I call magic tricks. Oh, here it is. I found it. Magic tricks that I didn't really want. Okay, so now that I got that loose, making sure that isn't keeping that hose from popping in place. Man.
This is real work, brother.
Ah, there we go. We did it. Cool. It just popped in place. And then I'll reach in here.
I mean, you have to touch every part of this thing. I mean, you didn't have to tear the engine apart. That was nice.
I know. Yeah, that's nice. In fact, I have to do that on a Furman generator. I'm gonna have to pull the head because when the customer went to remove the spark plug, he broke the spark plug.
Uh-oh.
So Furman, to my surprise, warranted the parts, but not the labor.
Oh.
So he's got to pay for the labor, but that's going to be a big project, which would make a good video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just making sure the hose is in the proper place before I snug this up.
Whoa, look, he's got his toothbrush from the 2000s era.
You know what? That actually might have been one of the old toothbrushes.
From like the Bellevue condo or something.
Yeah.
That's that old, man.
Oh, yeah.
You got don't be recycling. I always recycle my toothbrushes, but someone threw away my cleaning toothbrushes.
These are gross. What?
Well, they're cleaning
No, I
toothbrushes.
use those for everything.
Exactly. Yeah, they're perfect for stuff like this in the shop.
Yeah, and then I got some from like grandma's house, but they were so old, the handles were brittle and they would just snap when I would go to try
Oh, yep.
to use them.
Those are, yeah. Those.
Well, they were like family value or something. It was like dollar store toothbrushes. Like, just don't go to the dollar store. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that you pay for what you get.
Well, the dollar store is like, I don't know, it's kind of like Harbor Freight, but it's way worse.
Yeah. It's like the Tumu. Oh,
It's not even as good as, I don't know. Yeah, they should have a Temu store, shouldn't they?
Well, I mean, they do. It's on the internet, but yeah. I've seen some videos about the Temu stuff, and it was pretty fascinating. All right, so what I did is
You
I
get the
pulled.
same stuff on Amazon. Sells the same stuff, pretty much.
That's true. That is very true.
Well, there was this other thing. I don't know. It was eBig China or something. No, I forget where it was. I found some weird website. I'm like, man, these guys are stealing my credit card information. I just know. And I ordered something. I think it was some sort of audio codec chip development board that I just found randomly on their site. That was really cool. I mean, like. It was a 24-bit like audio codec that I was playing around with. Basically, an encoder. It takes it from, either analog or it takes an analog input and then digitizes it. It's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
Some little experiments, but
Yeah.
that came from, I forget, maybe it was. Oh, I forget the site, but it seemed like a scam. But they had all kinds of cool stuff. They had all sorts of like stuff for like radio hacking, like these software-defined radios where you can control streetlights and stuff, traffic
Really?
lights. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but it's like it's not Flipper Zero. It's a different one.
Yeah.
It's a software-defined radio, and then you hook it up to your laptop. It's like more advanced Flipper Zero.
Well, that's cool. All right, so one thing I almost forgot is that fuel valve and my little pinchums.
Pinchums? You
so-
left your pinchums in there.
Well, I can get them. They're right
you left
there.
it inside the patient.
But
The hemostat.
I have to pinch that line, which I'm trying to do with my long. You know what? Can I gently?
That's just held in with two screws.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to move that to gain a little bit better access. Oh, that's interesting.
That's
That
how
was
I would
loose.
have gone after the carburetor. I would have pulled that regulator off and started pulling hoses from that and dug my way in. But you still have to get all the way back there.
Yeah,
I would have done anything to avoid opening up that freaking control panel. The control panel is the worst with all the breakers and switches and.
yeah, and unfortunately, you had to get to it anyway.
Be in there working on it.
Yeah.
Propane and propane accessories. It's just spinning, brother. It's just
That's
Something's wrong. Is it captive, or did the captive not break off in the back? The weld
No, it's not broken, but it's not coming out. So
Great.
it's like it's stripped. So
Great.
that's really lame. Okay, so that helped a little bit. Not by much, but it helped a little bit. I just need to pinch the line, which I can actually pinch from lower. There it is.
I want to see this thing start.
Yeah, I did too.
I like how you just tell it to start and then R2D2 starts.
Okay, so I got that out, but I do need to go up a little higher so I can get this hose piece on. And so let's see. I might have to see if I can just kind of pinch it down here low with these again and then go up further. There we go. Oh, there goes some gas. Damn it.
State of California.
Yep. Okay, so now, yeah, some of this gas. Ugh.
You're making fuel vapors, Matt. You must recover those using the carbon canister, or we'll fine you carbon credits.
I know, right?
Your carbon credits are being.
Yeah, some of the stuff is kind of a pain. And then I was being silly. I should have grabbed another pair of pliers, but let me close this, tighten this a little bit. There we go. Get another pair of pliers. More pliers. I'll bring these out too. Let's see. Or actually, a pair of these would work just fine. This is where you have to kind of like get creative with your tools. All right, so pinch that, and then I got to get this back on.
The state of California requires you to have a fire extinguisher.
I got a fire extinguisher. Okay, cool. So we got that on. And now I need to pinch this, move this down a little bit. There we go. And get her connected, like so. All right, so I'm holding this back so it doesn't pull it out. And then I got to put a bolt here just to hold this back. And then I need to get that hose clamp in its proper spot. Yep, there we go. All right, so we'll get that nut or bolt back on. Yeah, it tightened up just fine. So it must be something on the back side on that. So that's holding in place, that's good. So now all we gotta do is plug in this, looks like a transformer. Back in place, up in the front here. And I'm going to, for now, I'm gonna set it just to the side. I do need the fuel valve on, and I believe I have the screw still in there. Nope, it should be in this. Oh, here it is. And then my screwdriver. So I know I had it in the off position and I felt it slide in. It's keyed on the back side, of course. There we go. And just snug it, like get it on there and just snug it, little turn. Don't go, you know, because you'll strip those threads real quick. Okay, so everything is lightly secured up here. Now the biggest question is, will it fire up under electric start now? Before, we were looking at this choke. So I'm gonna pull this cover back off, and I want to see what it's doing. Let me move a few of these things so you can see in here a little easier.
Let's see if I can get this camera in. Pointed to look at the thing. Oops, hold on. I'm gonna try and like. This camera's all kind of. Ugh, I smell the state of California.
Yeah. All right, so.
All right, yeah, I can see in there.
So now, if I turn this in the on position,
Okay,
turn it on
closed.
fuel, and it looks like, yep, the choke closed all the way. low idle off, and now we're gonna hit the push to start, and here we go.
Opening choke.
So, and one thing I did notice is it didn't close all the way. Oh, yeah, see, it closed all the way and popped it open. So, what sucks is we did all that, and when you go to hit the start button, at first it's closed all the way. You hit the start button, it opens up just a smidge, and then it attempts to start, keeps cranking, and then it opens all the way.
Tried it with another battery or assisting it. Maybe it's just not cranking over quite fast enough. It sounds like it's kind of turning over a little slow.
I don't think that's the issue because I can pull start it, but I will grab a
No,
battery.
I think it's the battery because if you can pull start it, it's just fine.
Well, pull starting is the reason why when you go to pull start it, it starts up just fine is because that choke's closed. It's not until you hit the electric start that the little stepper steps open just a little bit past fully choked, and it has a hard time starting. And I don't know if it's like the stepper motor feeling resistance and then stepping out. I don't know. So what I am curious on is like what you said. If I grab,
well, we replaced it. They said it would fix it. It didn't fix it.
yeah, I mean, warranty will take care of that. So the only thing I'm thinking, like you said, is try putting jumper cables on this. So how I usually do this is I have a deep cycle battery with some jumper leads, of course.
You should make yourself a sweet little jump box.
I like using the deep cycle battery than some of these boxes I've seen. And what I do is just to make sure nothing's touching over there, then I connect.
I mean, it turns over okay, but it seems like it's a little slow.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm seeing.
Well,
But we're gonna try
just
it.
Curious.
We're gonna try it.
I'm not a mechanic.
We're trying. Okay, so we're jumped. Now I'm gonna go ahead and hit the start. Everything's on, feels on. See, it sounds the same. So it's not.
What the heck?
Yeah, so it's not the lack of charge. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Is it getting
disconnect.
spark while it's doing that? Have you checked?
Oh yeah, it's getting a spark, and the reason why I know that is, and the reason why I came to the conclusion, or I know that it's that stepper choke thing, because if you watch, if I turn this on, fuel on, of course, fuel on. If I hold this closed right here,
Yeah.
if I hold this choke closed right here,
Yeah.
and then I hit start,
What if it's not getting its spark?
wait a second, now it's not. No, it was getting a spark because we started it earlier.
Well, manually it works, but maybe the electronics have failed. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
maybe it's the maybe if it's got electronic control of the kill switch, right?
Oh, that's interesting. So right now, it's not attempting to start, unlike before, because when we first started, it was, I was able to fire it up and override that choke like I was just trying to display it right there. I'm gonna shoot a little starter fluid in there, but before I do any of that, I need to clean up a little bit of this spilt fuel. Because if I do get a backfire, I want to make sure I don't catch anything on fire. It looks like a lot of it's evaporated, but Oop. Oh, that is a new carb. We just put a new carb in, so it could be that the bowl it hasn't filled up yet. But I can help it with a little bit of starter fluid to help kind of push things along. So fuel's on, gas. So I'm gonna add a little starter fluid. For me, what I like doing, because I have only had this happen a couple of times, where it backfired out of the carb and you see a little bit of flame. Usually that happens because you have a little extra starter fluid that it caught on fire. I like to keep my air around because I can quickly kind of add too much air and it'll snuff it out. So let's see. And this is also a way you can also confirm, see whether or not you're getting spark by shooting a little starter fluid in there. If it fires up for a second and dies, usually it means that you have a fuel issue. So I just shot a little bit of starter fluid in there. Yeah. So right now we're not getting what appears to be spark. So what has changed is the big question. All right, so
Well, can you manually pull start it?
Oh, let's try that.
I mean, as a test,
let's try
seems
that.
like it should start.
Pull start right over here.
That's the last thing we can do to check for spark before monkeying, because it's got to be a safety shutdown wire or something, maybe short out. Oh,
Nope.
you broke it.
All right, so what happened here? Now the question is, do we get spark? And that is going to be hidden over here, it looks like. Because this is the valve cover, so spark is generally,
It's got to be under that big plastic thing.
yeah, so it should be under here. Okay, which is interesting.
But why would it not be sparking? It's got to be because the kill switch is on. So how does it control? I mean, just like the yesterdays, it wouldn't shut off. It's maybe we look at that ignition module. Because looking at the plug,
Well, I need to.
we can verify it's no spark, but we also verify it's no spark because it doesn't.
Yeah, I need. Oh, you know,
Unless there's a problem with the throttle.
let's
bleeding.
just double check a couple things. So we plug this back in. This is all plugged in, but let me open this up. Maybe I accidentally disconnected something when I had this open. Let's see. My screwdriver. Oh, here it is. So, see, these are all the things that you'll run across when you're working on all this stuff, especially when they run the wires that the way they do, when you try to do it the same way, just try to make sure. And if you pull a little too much on one side, it might unplug something. It's just kind of a nuisance. But this is kind of what you get when you work on this kind of stuff. All right, so I gotta bring all my tools back over here. All right. So I'm gonna keep my knee kind of holding this. Let's turn this fuel off. Pull this off. And then, let's see, that's holding there. Yeah. That's holding there. You play a lot of aerobics when you work on these things.
I guess. You need the work and the tools at the same height so you don't have to keep jumping up and down.
Well, the problem is if it was at not the same height, I couldn't hold my knee to hold this up. So that's also kind of partly why I like to have things. Okay, so
I saw this one video of this girl installing a transmission in a car using her back leg or feet to as a transmission jack.
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
It was funny. She was all like spread in the position only a woman could get into, holding the transmission up with her feet. Pretty funny.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anything right offhand. So I am going to hold this back up, and I want to see spark. I want to check that first. Kind of work my way out from there, and just to see if that spark plug's saturated, like maybe something got flooded. But I don't think that's the case. But by me looking at it, I can get an idea of a couple things. It just gives me a little bit more data. All right, so that's gonna be a 10 mil. Yeah, some of the stuff can get a little frustrating at times.
It's got the racing start button, man. That's like the Honda S2000 start button.
Yeah. It's very interesting that they put a cover over this. Like, I get it. I mean, it's probably for also keeping the thing cool, because they have to channel air in proper direction to keep this whole thing cool.
Yeah.
So I am going to disconnect that off of the part of the air intake assembly. What's interesting, they put, they put a wire there, and it's like,
There's a wire going in there? Maybe it has a compression release. Well, no, those are usually mechanical.
it should be near the intake.
Yep, there's...
Oh, I see. It's just a bitch to take off. What is going on with this? Like, what did they... What? Look at that. There's... Okay, so we're gonna have to fix that. That's an issue.
Is that the spark plug wire?
No, I think it's back there.
What the heck? It's just like a random wire they had wrapped around a screw?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
That doesn't seem right.
Okay, so I have to take...
That must have been right before they went to lunch.
Yeah, no, right? So I have to take these, get these tubes out of the way. So I gotta disconnect this canister here. So
No, the state of California requires you to reconnect that canister immediately.
now they go in two different areas. So what I'm going to do is, I don't think those are directional, but no, I think they are. So
That's right, you're not certified by the state of California to service these emissions control devices.
wow. Come on.
Emissions. There's emissions. It traps them. It sequesters carbon.
Why can't I turn this thing off? This is stupid.
Dude, it's a dance party.
I know, right?
Dance, dance, dance. Dance, dance, dance.
All right. Oh, it turned off when I threw it in there. Okay, cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it. And orange. I'll just connect to orange. All right. There we go. Perfect. So that one's off. This is stupid. You have to do this just to do a spark plug? That's ridiculous. Like, this is one reason why I'm not a huge fan.
It's like working on a motorcycle. This is what it's kind of like.
Why did that have gas in it?
What?
Oh, that's right. Because he tipped this thing over, it's a breather. And so what happened is fuel came down, the breather came down through the line and started filling up in that charcoal canister, I bet.
Yep.
Okay, so, yep, it's right there.
Look at that.
But what is this? Why did they just stuff a wire?
I wonder if that has to do with starting.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Or maybe it's a temperature, like, is it a temperature sensor maybe?
No, they don't have temperature sensors on these, in my experience.
Well, what the heck is that wire?
Apparently a ground is,
Well, apparently they did a bad job.
but there's not like even like a little,
It doesn't have a ring terminal on it.
yeah, like if you look, it's just these spacers here, these metal spacers to keep you from crushing the plastic. There's no flat bladed ring terminal on that. So we're gonna fix that. We're gonna do that right. That's kind of,
It needs a ring terminal. And what the heck is it?
that's actually a good
I
question.
mean, why would
Unfortunately,
it's a weird ground.
it goes into that loom. I don't understand why they put it right there. Like, why couldn't they put it in a different spot where you don't have to pull this valve cover off just to get to a spark plug? Like, that's, I'm not exactly a fan of that. But it is what it is. We will deal with it, and we got to figure out why this thing's not running. So, I'll get my super duper long extension, which isn't exactly necessary. Snake that in there, and pull the spark plug. Just want to see what it looks like, see if it's wet. And it is wet. So it is getting fuel, but no spark. And it's not exactly the cleanest. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, let me get it.
So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this.
Ooh.
And what I like to do is the wire wheel. And when I do it, you don't push, just gently clean it. That's it. Actually looks good, but now I'm gonna check gap,
Gap up, bitch.
and it is too tight. These are normally set around 30 thousandths. So I'm just gonna open it up just a smidge. Actually, he doesn't run on propane. Yeah, so that's actually probably fine. So that's about 20 thousandths right there. So that should work fine. Then what I do is I put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, just to prevent possible issues. Just like so. All right, so I'm not gonna install it yet because I wanna see if we're getting spark. So I'm gonna set it on there. Problem is this wire here was on what looks like ground, which is no longer hooked to ground. I need to cut back a little bit of this sleeve so I can expose a little more of it.
Oh yeah, chairs. Yeah, I should use one.
Trying to get, what is going on? Oh, okay. What?
This is riveting.
See, it looks like there's two wires in here.
I think it's a thermocouple. I would not cut it. I'm concerned that it's a thermocouple because a thermocouple, it looks just like two wires that are hooked together on the end with a weld bead.
I don't think so, because if it was a thermocouple, that's for temperature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have not seen anything, I haven't seen anything using a thermocouple. Now, I could be wrong. We could look actually at the wiring diagram.
Yeah, well, it would be it'd be weird, but I mean, that's the only thing I could think of.
But what's weird is they only put it on the stud.
Yep.
So, I mean,
That's why I was wondering if maybe it was like a temperature sensor for the stud, because then you would know basically the cylinder head temperature of the engine. In case the engine's overheating, then the system could shut it down.
What the heck? And see, I don't know exactly. I only can assume that this is what I've exposed so far, is I cut back a little bit of the sheath, and I've exposed what looks like 2 wires. There's one wire that looks like completely cut. I did not cut that, that I'm aware of. And then there was this part that was exposed, which I noticed when I went to pull that nut off, after I pulled that nut
Is there a
off.
service manual for this thing? I mean,
So,
what is that? That
yeah.
It's something. It's weird that it has 2 wires. Like it might have been some sort of a sensor.
I wonder if they were joined together.
module, or why would they be joined together and tied to a nut? Like, this
Yeah.
seems just suspicious.
The only thing I can think of is like some kind of ground, but for what?
Is there a manual for this? Did they?
Yeah, we're gonna pull up the service manual,
I don't think it's a ground. I think something's going on.
because in the service manual, I'm gonna see the wiring diagram, because I want to see if
Did this guy pull the plug to get the oil out of the cylinder? To try to make it start?
couldn't tell you.
Maybe. Because if someone's been in here, then what is that? We got to figure out what the frick that wire is.
Yeah,
It
so
doesn't look right. That looks like a homeowner special.
yeah, something's not. What I'm almost wondering is, what if I grab a couple of alligator clips, clip that to touch that to ground. Let's set this right here like so, because we can see for spark. Let's try that real quick. I'm just curious, because it was touching ground. So I'm not going to expose that other wire, but I'm just going to leave that one.
Okay.
Grab some alligator clips. We're going to temporarily put it to ground like it was. I mean, it is possible. The customer did open this. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, what the heck is that? And does it have anything to do with why it won't start?
No.
Well, apparently the carburetor didn't have anything to do with why it wouldn't start either.
Nope. Well, it is the stepper motor. It's not closing all the way. Now, is it because this ties to that circuit somehow? I don't know. So I did put an alligator clip to that stud that it was connected to, and to that wire that was exposed. Now the spark plug, I'm going to make sure it kind of sits there. So it's touching this stud, and it's touching this part of the case. And I'm going to check for spark. So we're going to turn this on, and we're going to turn it. No spark. We're not getting any spark. That sucks. Okay, so we pulled up the user manual. Normally, towards the bottom, they'll have a wiring diagram. That's what we need to check. I do not see any wiring diagram. I'm probably going to have to contact them and get the wiring diagram for this. This sucks. Unless that customer did something with that line. Let's
Well,
see.
we gotta figure out what it was. It's not supposed to be like.
Yeah, you know what? Do they show spark plug on this?
Yeah.
Spark.
Like anything about maintenance.
Yeah, spark plug wrench, spark plug clean and adjust. Aha, removal. Remove the 4 bolts, then remove the valve cover.
Okay. Do you see a wire?
So
in
there's
there?
no wire. What is that?
Oh, anti-theft. It's low jack.
Something's not
Extra
right.
Stuff.
Something's not right.
No, it's not right. It's supposed to connect with something or do something.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to. Let me zoom in on this.
Zooming.
Ah, I do see
But it has a terminal.
a wire with a terminal.
I bet it's
Okay.
a temperature sensor.
No, I don't think so.
It could easily be a thermal.
Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do is we only have part of that wire exposed. Let's expose the other part and let's touch the two together and get it to ground, because I'm only grounding part of this. I'm not grounding the other part. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna expose, if I can, get that little tool in there, see if I can expose this wire. And then tie. Let me expose a little bit more of this one, down a little lower. It's kind of a pain because the wire's way down there. So it looks like it's the customer, when he went in here, he damaged that
The ring terminal.
unfortunately.
I'm curious why it would be two. I mean,
I don't understand why there's two.
yeah.
Okay, so with that grounded, that grounded. So that's grounded there, which is grounding this, both of them now. And then we have the spark plug grounded. Let's see if we get any kind of spark. Nope. Okay, so then that means it's something what I've done that I got to figure out. So this has become a big monkey
A big job.
job.
You're precious.
All right. Okay.
Need some new wheels on this.
I know.
You can get rollerblade wheels on Amazon. That's what I put on my office chair.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And those actually worked really good.
Yeah, they roll really well and they're quiet.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna pull this down. We're gonna inspect. This is what I mean, why you don't want to put everything back together 100%, because sometimes you're bound to find something. Oh, that sucks, because that propane line.
Is there any way you can leave that hose intact and just disconnect it from one end?
Let's see, that connected.
If only we could remove that regulator. Well, I would look.
Oh, you know what?
I'd start looking on this side above the battery. Remember all those connectors that you were pawing through that are in
Over
the wire
there?
harness? I'd see if one of them's loose.
Yeah, let me first
Check
put
this.
this on here just to keep this kind of closed. And I do want to see, because there's a lot of wires right here too. And what I need to do is just take all of that stupid plastic stuff, or that wire loom crap off, and keep it exposed for now. I should have just kept it exposed earlier. I'm wondering, see that, where did that go to? That went up to that propane, or that valve right here. And then the fuel line is connected right there, which I gotta disconnect again in order to drop this down to get better access. Yeah, so let's do that real quick. Then, okay, so fuel line's disconnected. And I'm thinking, yeah, instead of pulling it from here, I'll probably pull it from that propane solenoid. Yeah, I should be able to get a little access to it. Okay, actually, it's going to be easier with a socket. And a 7 mil with my little wrench. Where are you, little guy? Oh yeah, that's right. I was using the Ogadoga. There we go. So it's very interesting though that that was disconnected. It was working. Actually, I can't use that. I got to actually use a wrench. See, those are kind of the surprises that you get every once in a while. Unfortunately, some people don't want to be completely transparent on mistakes, which can actually help lead to troubleshooting if they just are upfront on a few things. But I don't think that was having any of our issue. But we are currently not getting spark, so that is definitely an issue that has to get addressed. And the only thing I can do is see what I might have unfortunately unplugged or something.
Well, it's a kill. The kill requires a connection to disable the coil, right? It's not like an enable coil, it's a disabled coil wire,
Yes, correct.
usually on these engines. So if it's disconnected, you won't be able to shut down. That was yesterday.
Yep,
So what's happening today?
exactly. There we go. Oh, that was actually much easier than going through
Look how
this thing.
juicy and delightful it is in here now.
Okay, so
This is the coil. And here's the coil wire. Wow, look at it's like a bowstring, dude.
oh yeah, that's not good.
That's a ground that's like a. Oh, look, it's hanging on it. What's this that's unplugged?
Okay, so that's ground.
This thing's unplugged.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was talking about that was unplugged earlier. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, let's disconnect that here so we can actually get this removed all the way.
That's weird. The coil's on top of the engine. That means it doesn't have the. It must have a CDI. No, this isn't supposed to plug into the coil, brother. It plugs in right there. Your coil came unplugged.
You are right.
Your coil's unplugged, gangster.
Coil's unplugged. Thank you. I was
Now
an
it will
idiot.
work much better.
I was an idiot. I apparently unplugged it.
Well, it's kind of.
It's just in a, see, this is just such a,
There's not enough room for service.
yeah, it's just such a bad placement of everything. It's just, especially when you get in all these little thingies, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you just gotta make sure, I don't like, so, yeah, so we're tugging on some stuff, unfortunately. Let me tip this up so we're not dripping with a little gas in there. See, I thought I checked everything, and apparently not. And apparently I tugged on some stuff, and I'm still tugging on some stuff. So it looks like this thing.
I think you're supposed to install this panel, and then those wiring connectors you're supposed to make through this.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can't, because this opening has to. You can't have that opening. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this thing off.
Problem solved.
Yep. I'm gonna pull that off. And that, by pulling that off, wow, that's really tugging on there. Okay, so, wow, how did this get so, feels like it got so short, but, there we go. Let's kind of reroute that all the way on this other side. And then put it over here. So what I did is on the back side of this, really tugging on this whole connector. So I moved it to the other side. And then we have, wow, they really have this all super tight. I didn't, what was that? Oh, I see. There's our hose fitting for this right here. Okay, so, yep. Yeah, because this has to be plugged in, otherwise this will not run.
Yeah.
and we won't get
that's the
started.
whole
And see,
CDI
even
unit, like
and
this-
see what's crazy too is look at this. Even I didn't put this zip tie here. This was on here, and it was so tight already.
Practically pulling
Like,
it out.
yeah. So like some of this stuff, like yeah, granted it looks nice. It's just doing a disservice. See, now I got a lot more room. There we go. And then just gently chuck.
This is the clamp that's supposed to hold it all. You're supposed to stick them all inside of this thing and then wrap it around
Yeah, but
so that it holds them.
there we go. Okay, so we will address that probably from that side. But for now, let's put this back on and let's see if we can get this fixed. Okay.
Get your clampers.
I'll get my clamps. And so that hose, the clamp. Okay, so this stupid monkey thingy. We're doing my ballet again. Okay, well, I'm glad we saw that. Well, what's interesting is I actually did see that earlier, and it didn't dawn on me. That's where it connected, and I thought it was part of some of the, expansions for different harnesses for different machines. Okay, so I gotta get this propane line reconnected. And then I gotta get that fuel line reconnected. And now I'm positive this will start up, but it may not start up in the condition that it is with that stepper motor not acting the way it should. But we'll at least be able to fire it up.
Well, the stepper motor either works or it doesn't. It doesn't. The behavior is going to come from the computer.
Well, the only thing I can think of is unless there's something, I don't know, does the stepper motor, no, servo motors have,
The stepper motors are just an AC induction motor.
yeah, so they just step in intervals, but the servo motor has a little bit of feedback, like resistance feedback. So yeah, it wouldn't do what I'm thinking, what I was getting confused with.
No, these ones, that's why it closes the choke, because that's how it figures out where the end of the stepper motor is, and it just counts steps. So
and it's
basically
stepping out too
Yeah.
far when it goes to initially start.
Well, maybe.
Because what's happening is when it closes, it'll step out and it's opening instead of being completely closed.
Well, see, that's, I think, more control behavior than actually a problem with the motor. Because that's all going to be programmed into this little control panel unit. That's where its brain is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, let's see, where did we plug in that choke? That choke, yeah, it's the throttle that's on the throttle's on the inverter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be in that little brain then.
Yeah, and the throttle, I think, has a string that just runs it wide open, and then the other thing closes it.
Throttle
I'm not
has
sure.
a spring.
Yeah.
Well, it has a stepper motor.
Yeah, but it's, yeah, well, it's probably, well, okay, no, stepper motor, whatever. I think the throttle is probably wide open.
See, I think
That's
the
what-
throttle is being controlled, so it's seeing AC, and then it's adjusting probably on the frequency. The throttle position based on frequency.
Well, I mean, all the engine control stuff is happening in this little control panel, and then it's separate from the inverter. But the inverter has control of the throttle.
Yeah. Okay, so that's nice and tight there. Now I got to plug that fuel line back in, and I have my little wrench in there that I need to feed out. Let's see. Oh yeah, I tucked it in here. Okay, more ballet. Yeah, and see, this is ridiculous. Having to do all of this, they just make it so much more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, there's really not a good mechanical connection to that coil.
Yeah. Okay, so that's in there. And then just get one more so it's not just hanging on that plastic, because it's just plastic. Okay, so now plug this guy. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so then I'll put this breather tube back on here. All right. Now I am willing to bet we have spark. So we'll put this fuel valve back on. And then over here, I'm not even gonna hook this evap thing back up right now. We don't have any excess. Let me blow some air around here. Because I'm gonna have an open spark here. Okay, so now, I'm gonna keep this in my lap. Turn this on. I'm not gonna turn on fuel, we don't need to. And we get spark. We get great spark.
right.
Cool, all right. So we fixed that. Now let's put this back on. So that was one issue. Okay. Put this on here like so. Okay, so this wire here though, ideally what I need to do is I need to solder this and then crimp on a new eyelet. But I'm gonna solder that on there because I bet you it was one solid piece, but the guy ripped it off, unfortunately. So let's see here. Grab my iron.
Why don't you just crimp it on?
I don't like I'm gonna put a crimp, but I need to make sure the two wires stay together.
Yeah, but you can just do that
In the crimp?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that, but I've had them where they'll pop out.
If you use solder, it's not right because it'll create a brittle point on the wire. Where the wire will, over time, vibration will cause the wire to crack right where the solder is. Because the solder, like it just needs strain relief. There's no strain relief there. That's part of the problem. And throw some heat shrink over it.
What do you mean? Because we're putting the two wires together.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, heat shrink could be for strain relief to keep the thing from, because it's going to vibrate a lot.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm just putting these two wires together so that they stay together as one at the point there, because they're all equal lengths now. And I expose the wire, but I'm going to put some solder on there so they stay together, and then I'm going to put the crimp over where I put the solder on the 2 points, and then crimp it down so that now I have a good. So I make sure that one of the wires doesn't pop out or another, because I've seen that happen, and that's the only reason why I want to solder that on there, just to ensure that that stays together. That's what I've done in the past. I'll put this on. I'll fold this up to add a little extra bite, and then it's kind of hard to see though. Then put this up on there and then crimp it with these piece of junk crimps. There we go. Okay, so we can at least pop that on there. Okay, so we'll put this back on, making sure that's routed and cover. Let's hold that out like so. Okay. And these little spacers need to go back in. That just helps keep the plastic from getting pinched down. And let's see, grab the right socket. Just 10 mil, which is this guy. Tighten that down. And then before we get those on, let's get these bottom bolts in. Get this one on. Okay. So then I can get, I gotta get that seated. Perfect. Now get this on there. So I think what happened, like you said, he probably just over torqued this and broke it off.
It's easy to do, which is why any other bolt would have been a good ground, except for the bolt you have to remove to get through the spark plug.
Okay.
Which is the only, then that's because it's such a weird place. That's why I thought it's probably a temperature sensor.
Yeah. And I could see that because I mean it's like the head, but going off a stud would be kind of weird.
Yeah, you'd usually go off of the head bolt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so we already marked these. So put these guys back in place. And this is just for EVAP emissions. Stuff.
There we go. State of California loves you for reconnecting that.
Oh yeah.
The state of California loves you for properly reconnecting the evaporative controls.
Exactly. You're not polluting.
Well, it's for creating smog because I think that when sunlight hits gas fumes, it creates ozone or something
Okay.
stupid.
So now that that's all back together, back to what we were originally trying to do is start this back up after we did the work. So now turn that on, turn on fuel, turn on, whoa, whoops.
What does it say?
I turned on the valve and gas came out because I didn't hook up the fuel line on the side.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
last night.
Oh yeah. It's
Why
me
do they
inhaling
use-
too much gas.
3-phase breakers, and then they have them under these weird little nipple.
I hooked up the one line, but I didn't
you
hook up
can
the other
look,
line.
but you can't touch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they did that for weatherproofing.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of good.
Yeah, so it works.
Because most of these things, like that's like the engine start from a Honda. Like, look at that thing. I bet you could find that on Amazon. Just look for engine start.
Oh yeah, some of this stuff. I mean, they don't make these switches.
Yeah.
They buy them.
And the brakes. I'm surprised that they put a 3-phase breaker in
Yeah, I'm kind of
instead
surprised
of
too.
just creating 2 of the plastic molds. Like,
Oh, actually, I think
it was cheaper to put a 3-phase breaker in than to create a mold that had. And why would you? I just don't understand.
it's cheaper for them just to buy that off the shelf.
I guess they got a deal on 3-phase breakers because
Yeah.
it only needs 2,
And what I gotta
and
do
only 2 are actually wired.
is this fuel line, which you won't be able to see, unfortunately. And where did she go?
The state of California says that you're creating emissions by letting the gas evaporate.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Callie.
It's all right. They made us breathe all their smoke.
Yeah, all that smog.
Ugh. The state of California is not good to inhale.
No. They definitely got some smog going on, that's for sure. Okay, so there was a little hose clamp. Usually I can pinch these and I can get them back in.
I think this is a women's generator.
Yeah, he actually bought this for his wife to be able to start up on herself.
It looks like a women's generator to me. And it's
Makes
nice
it a
that
lot
it has
easier.
the automatic carbon monoxide.
Yeah, so you don't kill yourself running
like
these
the
things.
other one. Because some people are so stupid, especially the quiet ones. Man, you can just put that in the other room.
Yeah, sadly. Okay, so it opened the choke. So the choke's all the way open. And now it is closed it all the way, it popped it open. So she started, unlike before though. So I'm gonna turn off the fuel, I'm gonna shut it down. So another thing is when you don't have an air filter or the whole intake system all sealed up like it should, some carburetors actually are tuned for the air box and air filter. So sometimes they'll lean them out a little too far in accounting of the resistance of the airflow, especially with that carburetor, or I mean not carburetor, air filter. So because if you say you have a dirty air filter, a more restricted air filter acts like a choke. And so some of the stuff they design that in place. Man, I feel like I'm inhaling too much fumes.
Yeah, you're getting high, brother. Maybe
yeah.
we should crack the door.
I think so too. But so far, it's running. I'm gonna take a little break and get a little breather and come right back to this to button this up. All right, so after taking a little breather from inhaling plenty of gas fumes, after looking at and trying to find a wiring diagram and stuff, so we have come to the conclusion that this wire right here is a thermocoupler. And the reason why we think it's a thermocoupler, because when I went to try to solder it, it wouldn't take any solder. So it's a different type of metal. And with a thermocoupler, it's two dissimilar metals that are welded at the end. And the weld, could have been possibly that crimp or it, some other type of weld outside of the crimp holding it on. And I think that when the customer tipped this over in his vehicle by accident, when he originally picked this up from us, that he had oil spill everywhere, and it might have been hydrolocked, so he had to pull this cover off in order to pull the spark plug out to clear it of any excess oil that he ingested. So in order to pull the spark plug out, you would have to take this cover off, and if you're not careful about putting that eyelet back on there, and if you just crank so if I take this here, and if I just crank this over, of course that's the wrong socket, but if I just crank this over, this is going to twist. And you gotta be gentle. You gotta hold it and then snug it up. You don't need to go crazy where you're twisting this. And I think that's what happened is he got, kind of heavy on it, and it broke that off, and then he just kind of pushed the wires together. But one wire, when I pulled this off, one wire was partly exposed, the other one wasn't exposed at all. So I don't even think it was making contact. And if it's a thermocoupler, that means it's sensing temperature, which also probably plays a role in possibly the choke. I'm not sure. I don't have the wiring diagram yet. We put a contact out to our Duromax lead, so hopefully we can find some answers on what this wire is, and to confirm that this is possibly a thermocoupler, and if it is a thermocoupler, what is it controlling? So that's kind of what went on behind the scenes just a little bit ago. So now we're going to go ahead and put this back together and run some tests, and hopefully everything is good. So what we got to do, I got to get this back on.
Well, what about all the control panel screws?
Yeah, so this, yep, so I just couldn't remember if this panel had to get all snugged up first, or this goes on and then snugged on. And it looks like, yeah, you're right, the control panel goes on first. So let's go ahead and do that. These screws in. And then we got 2 of these guys. Let's get the right socket. Let's see here. Is it over here? No, it is right here. All right, get these. That's a 10. Oh, whoops. I need an 8 mil. Seven. Oh, these are backwards. That's why. There we go. But overall, that's the thing, is like when you're working on this stuff and, you know, someone else has used it, and someone else has done some other stuff, you just never know 100% what you're getting into. All you can do is go under what normal conditions would be. And under normal conditions, it takes X amount of time. And this definitely takes quite a bit of time, and I wouldn't say this was abnormal conditions. The only thing that was abnormal was that wire for that thermocoupler. That was not normal, or what we believe is a thermocoupler, in that it was broken. So we'll get some answers on that later on, hopefully. So just kind of getting all these screws secured. Okay, so that's the panel properly secured. And get this guy. So they have a couple little spots there. Okay. And then we can get those couple in, which actually are captured with these. And what's interesting is, yeah, so what's interesting is they put 2 screws here, but yet these 2 screws are in different places on the outside, and they're not used to retain like this, except for this one down here. Very interesting, kind of a little inconsistent in a few things, but it's just how they have it designed. All right, so now we know these 2 longer ones definitely go down here. Same with this. Okay, up here. So what's interesting is I think that, so remember that was kind of popped out before. So I don't know if this was possibly pulled off at one point. I don't think so, but it's possible. Okay. All right. Cool. So this is on. We can put this back on. Let's see, the back cover I can put on after, because they're not like the other. What's that? Just cover that back up.
The beautification step. It doesn't want to fit.
No.
It doesn't fit.
There we go. Kinda. Okay. Oop. There we go. There we go. All right. So then that's all buttoned. So I need to do the other side. That's just a cover. So this one, make sure I'm not. Okay, so the same kind of gig. This upper, I put a screw here. And then these lower 3, 4. Okay, yeah, so tighten this. So I noticed is you put one screw here, and then the rest of these plastics are retained from here and here. And then these 2 screws are out here. So this part of the plastic is retained here and here. So it's just kind of interesting. Then there's 2 little nubs on the top, I've noticed, right here and here. They go in those 2 holes to help kind of hang it, like so. Put my knee on there, hold her back. Okay. That I didn't mess with. That one I didn't mess with. That one I apparently took out. Oh, I see. This, let's just sit on that plastic. There we go. Oh, didn't put that one in. Okay, so all of those are in. That's all looking lined up. All right, so we'll get this wheel back on. Like so. And then these are 10 mil. Put these covers back on. Perfect. All right, and then we'll put the wheel on the other side. So I don't think I got that one on all the way. Use the backside of my drill like a little hammer. I don't normally do that, but need something rubber. All right, so now a few screws left, which goes to this cover back here. So it's just these two, 1, 2, yeah, perfect. All right, so before I put, actually, I might as well just put that cover on.
Are you sure you don't want to see if it works?
Yeah.
Bad luck? Is it bad luck to see if it works?
Yeah. All right, let's see if it works. So here we go. So we turn it on the fuel. Turn on gas, low idle off, hit on. Here's his electric start
Boots up.
switch, and we hold it down.
It's got a remote. It's got remote electric start. Okay, well, the choking attempt failed. Why is it at 50 hertz frequency?
Because it's too slow. There we go. So then, stopped it.
Ooh, thing's pretty sweet.
Fix my mic here. Okay.
Remote on it.
So I'm gonna try starting it again. It is starting. So okay, so overall, it is starting. And even though that choke didn't close all the way, even on this, after we replaced that carburetor, I'm starting to believe that it actually is probably a couple things. One, we found in there what we think is a thermocoupler. Right, thermocoupler?
Thermocouple.
Yeah, thermocouple. That may be giving some information to the controller to let it know where to place that choke. We don't know yet. We're still waiting to hear back from Duromax to confirm whether or not what that is. That's theory number one. Theory number two I think could be that the carburetor, the main jet, was partly restricted, causing it to not have as much fuel flow coming through that carburetor, even though the choke isn't fully closed but partial open, which is doing the exact same thing with the new carb. That's the other theory that I think is in why it was having hard start issues when using the electric start versus the manual pull. Because the manual pull, when you turn this switch on and everything lights up, that choke closes all the way. And so that's why when I go to pull start this, it fires up right away. Like right now, it fired up right away. Because the choke's 100% closed. But right when I hit the start button, it closes all the way, and then pops open just a smidge, like probably 1/8 inch to almost a quarter, not yet quarter, but 2/8 of an inch probably. And so it's not fully choked. So it could be one of those two things. So we'll update this later on, and after we get the wiring diagram and get in contact to find out exactly what the wires are that are on the head bolt, or at least I wouldn't call it the head bolt. It's basically the valve cover, casing cover. That is where we found 2 wires, one that looked like they were just kind of crammed on there and then screwed down. When I looked at the owner's manual, it looked like there's an eyelet that's holding that on there. We fixed that thermocoupler and making sure that they're now connected, and put a new crimp on there. And so the thermocoupler is now working. So we don't know if maybe that's part of this. I don't know. So there's a couple of questions, but hopefully we can update this and get some final answers. But anyway, that's how you go about replacing the carburetor on this if you have to. It is a real pain in the butt. Not something I would definitely recommend just anyone to do. I would recommend just take it to a shop. So anyway, on to the next project.